Welcome. My name is Joseph Anderson, and today I'll be discussing how to sync orders from QuickBooks using Connex. So a little bit about me. I'm the CEO and founder of the Sync with Connex, and I've been working with QuickBooks for the past 12 years. I started the project back in 2011, and I'm the principal software developer. And since that time, I've helped set up hundreds of companies with QuickBooks Online and Desktop. So our first question for today is, what is the address format? How do I enter my orders in QuickBooks in a way that your software can understand and properly translate my city, address, and other information to my ordering solution? I recommend opening up the customer record associated with every sale. So the customer record includes the phone number, the email, first name, last name, company. And if you make an order in QuickBooks, our tool will actually check back every line item and say, oh, that's the person's name, that's the city, that's the country, and put the words in the right slots. Another benefit of pre-filling the information, as you can see here, which is you have the billing address, and it says same as billing with a city and a state and a postal code, is that when you make the order, it pre-populates everything. So it's much simpler to enter orders accurately into your QuickBooks. Furthermore, if you want to pull the phone number and email, we pull that from the QuickBooks customer record. So it's a really good business practice to make sure that the QuickBooks customer record is fully completed. Now let's say your billing or shipping address is different than the one in QuickBooks. That's fine. Just make sure you have the name on line 1, the address on lines 2 and 3. You have the enter key, and you have a city, comma, state, space, or 2 spaces, and a postal code, and our software should be able to recognize it. A common mistake that I see is that customers will send no billing address, or they'll send a billing or shipping address with no address on it, so the order can't go anywhere. So here's an example with an address where you have the customer's name and the ship to, and the bill to is fine. I've also seen orders where there's no ship to address at all, the field is even missing. So if you're using QuickBooks Desktop, just make sure that your template has a bill to and a ship to field available. The country code is not required for the United States, but if you're shipping to Canada or to Europe, just make sure you use the 2-letter ISO code. So if you're shipping to Canada, use CA, or for Great Britain, you can use GB. So how does the sync work? And with Connex for QuickBooks Online and Desktop, it's a little bit different for either one. With the Desktop tool, we pull the Connex orders into our database, and we save them into some special fields. And even if you're logged out of our site, our software will still process. So you could be on Right Networks, you run your web connector, but you're not logged into our site. We find 10 invoices that have to sync to ShipStation. We'll process those as soon as we receive them, or within usually a few minutes. There is going to be a delay. You're in this bucket. It's almost like you're at a grocery store and you're in line, and sometimes the line's a little longer than other days, but usually there's a short delay. So you'll run your web connector and the line will just process itself. So maybe you're like 4th in line and there's 10 cashiers. So your orders will sync fairly quickly. Now, one thing to note is that we do send the orders one at a time, except for ShipStation, we send them in bigger batches. So if you had 50 orders, we have to send them one at a time, get a response, and log it. So it may take several minutes to process all of those sales. A larger volume would indicate a slower sync. From personal experience, I would say most queues are processed within 5 minutes. For QuickBooks Online, there's no need to save your orders to a database. Works a similar way with the scheduled task system where you don't have to be logged into anything. You could even be out playing golf and the system would process your incoming sales. It's a lot more touchless than QuickBooks Desktop. If you had to run a sync ASAP, you could log in, run a manual sync, and that should cause everything to resync ASAP. With both systems, you can preview what will sync. For QuickBooks Desktop, there are some additional steps, and you can click on that link because it's a little complicated. There's about maybe 5 or 10 different steps. You have to stop the sync, update the orders, and put the orders in a queue, so they kind of stay in that middleman. But there's more details on that article, and I don't want to go into too many details. We have an order previewer tool, so if you click on orders and then order previewer on the left, it's going to ask you for a sync direction. You can say sync from QuickBooks, click the button, and you'll see how all the fields will map. So I said earlier that almost all of our systems except ShipStation send the orders one at a time. With ShipStation, as of now, we can send the orders in batches of 10. And when that queue is fully processed, our software will log the results. And you can get emails saying that, oh, this order failed to sync and here is why. ShipStation can sense an error and say, oh, you're missing the city field, you're missing a customer name, and you can update those orders. One thing to note is that we pull orders by the date that they're modified. So if you go in and modify a sale, you fix an address, you add or remove a line item, it's going to cause it to resync. That's good because if an order fails to sync, you don't have to log in and change the sync dates. You can just make the change in QuickBooks and wait for it to process. The most common use for our software is you go into QuickBooks, you sync an order from QuickBooks to ShipStation or your shipping tool. You ship it, and that adds the tracking details, shipping costs back to your QuickBooks. So the way it works is you create a two-way sync. You create this special selling channel or box inside of your shipping tool. Let's say it's called manual orders or QuickBooks orders. And everything that you send from QuickBooks goes into that box. You ship it, and then only orders from that box go from your shipping tool back into your QuickBooks. So that's how you do the two-way sync. That ensures that your Amazon or eBay or other sales that could be in your shipping tool aren't coming through at the same time. Usually in the case of if you had ShipStation or ShipWorks or another shipping solution, you can set up a filter, it's called a store filter on our software and say, all right, I only want to sync these stores. We may even give you a separate connection, one for doing the two-way, the manual order sync, and the other one for your Amazon, eBay, and other sales. So you can sync an order from QuickBooks, ship it, and send back the tracking details, and we can send back the tracking number, the shipping date, the shipping cost, and the shipping date. And if you have multiple shipments on the same order, we can append that. So you will get all of those details onto the sale. Now, you may offer free shipping for customers. If that's the case, check the second box that says tracking info only. But if you want to send through the cost and the carrier and tracking info, then check the first box. It's a really good practice to mark up your shipping, and I'll go over that in just a moment. So I always recommend that to check the first box and then add a rule that says if the cost is over a certain amount, or maybe there's a certain shipping method, add $1.50 or add 10%. We actually had a case study of one of our most successful customers where he marked up shipping and it became very profitable for his business. So for QuickBooks Online, they have shipping fields. They have a box for the tracking number, a box for the shipping date, a box on the bottom right for the shipping amount, and we can put all that there. For desktop users, we just add a line item. Usually we call the method shipping, and then in the middle we have the method description, the tracking number, ship date. In my opinion, it's a bad business practice to have one item name in QuickBooks for every method. You should really just map everything to shipping and then a description have the exact details. Unless you want to know how much money you're making on FedEx versus DHL versus UPS. So when we sync the sales, your order number in QuickBooks and your shipping tool have to match, and that's how we locate sales. And you can update sales orders, invoices, if you like. Another common scenario is customers will sync a sales order from QuickBooks, ship it, and then create an invoice to close out the sales order. I added a link onto this slide for more information on how to add that feature. So another common question that I get asked is about marking up the shipping on the sales. I highly recommend doing it. because you can easily add $1 to every order that you ship, and that could more pay for Connex 2, 3, 4 times over. So you'll see here there's a link here on this slide, but you could say if the amount is greater than $50, then you could add 10% or add $1.50 shipping and handling using our rules engine. So when you're syncing these orders from QuickBooks to your ordering solution, can you add a filter? I highly recommend yes, because you want to make sure that orders that you approve are sent over. You could add a class of ShipStation, and this is the most common. The class is on the top right of the order. It's just a drop down. It's a category. Now for QuickBooks Online, it works a little bit differently, and I'll show you that slide in a moment. But this is with the QuickBooks desktop tool that we have. You can also sync orders regardless of class, and you can choose a type of orders that you want to sync. Do you want to sync just invoices regardless of class, just sales orders, and you can choose multiple types if you wish. So for Connex for QuickBooks Online, we have the rules engine, and there's going to be a rule there for the class mapping. You can just click Map From and delete them, and that will sync orders regardless of class. You can also add a rule that says that if the order class matches ABC, then don't sync it. So there's multiple fields. You could say if the QuickBooks Online department / location field is Boston, then don't send it through. There are many combinations that you could add. So what we would do is we'd pull out all the sales from QuickBooks matching a criteria, like all invoices modified in the last hour, loop through each one, and the ones that fit this criteria simply wouldn't get sent through. So in summary, you can ship an order in your shipping tool, and you can modify the order in QuickBooks. You could sync a sales order from QuickBooks, ship it, and sync the invoice back and close a sales order. Now with our tool for the desktop, and Online doesn't have the queue at all, we can download the orders into a queue and then process them. So it takes a few minutes, so there's going to be a little bit of a delay with the desktop. The reason why we don't process the orders right when the web connector is done, which means I don't use the queue, is that the web connector needs to receive a response, a thumbs up or a thumbs down, as I like to say, that the sync was successful. And if you had 100 sales, it's going to take longer than 2 minutes to send them through, especially if it's one by one. So that's why we have that queue tool. With our software, you can filter orders to sync by class or use other fields like the QuickBooks Online location or department. You can also use a class and say if the order has this class and don't send it through. I highly recommend class, but you're more than welcome to use something else. You could use a rule. You can't sync orders regardless of class or regardless of any filter, but it's not the recommended way. I think it's best to approve orders before they're synced. My last comment for today is about marking up shipping. And we had a customer of ours that was very successful, and we did a case study on them. If you were to add like 50 cents or even $1 for every order you synced, and you had 6,000 orders, that's $6,000. You would more than pay for Connex and return a return on your investment. So if possible, I would add a small amount to your shipping. So after this, if you're still experiencing sync issues, what's the best way to contact us? If you go to help.synkwithconnex.com, you can click on the submit a ticket on the top right, and you can just detail some of the errors that you have. What sync dates did you try? Show us any duplicate products, stock changes that failed to sync, and we will respond within 1 business day. Thank you.